Welcome back to BullionIQ. If you're watching the crypto market right now, it probably feels confusing and frustrating at the same time. Prices move up and down, social media is full of noise, and everyone seems to have a different opinion about what's going to happen next. But if you step back and look beyond the daily candles, you'll realize something important. The biggest changes in finance don't happen loudly. They happen quietly in the background, while most people are distracted by short-term price action. Most people think crypto is only about buying low and selling high. That mindset keeps them trapped in a trader's mentality, staring at charts all day. Institutions don't think like that. Banks, governments, and global financial organizations care about one thing above all else, and that is infrastructure. They care about how money moves, how fast it settles, how much it costs, and how much risk is involved. Right now, the global system they use is outdated, slow, and extremely expensive, even though we live in a digital world. When you send money across borders today, the money does not actually move instantly. What really happens is that banks send messages to each other through old systems that were designed decades ago. These systems rely on trust, middlemen, and manual checks. Because of this, banks are forced to keep large amounts of money parked in foreign accounts just to make sure payments can be completed. This money sits idle and cannot be used productively. This is where the massive $27 trillion problem comes in. Around the world, banks have trillions locked in what are known as pre-funded accounts. This capital is frozen. It cannot be invested, loaned, or used to grow economies. It exists only to support a broken settlement system. If you understand this problem, you start to see why financial institutions are desperate for a better solution. Ripple has spent years building technology designed to fix this exact issue. Many people misunderstand Ripple's role and think they are trying to replace banks. That is not the case. Ripple is not competing with banks. It is working with them. Their goal is to become part of the regulated financial framework so they can help banks move value more efficiently, not disrupt them from the outside. For global finance, regulation is not optional. If you want to move large amounts of money, you must follow strict rules. Ripple understood this early on and chose a long, difficult path. Instead of avoiding regulators, they engaged with them. This approach took time and brought legal challenges, but it also positioned Ripple as a serious player that institutions can trust. Another major shift happening right now is the move toward instant settlement. In the future system, transactions will not take days. They will settle in seconds. While this sounds great, it creates a new problem. Instant settlement removes the ability for banks to delay and bundle transactions, which means they need immediate liquidity at all times. Traditional systems are not built for this. This is where XRP's real purpose becomes clear. XRP is not designed to replace national currencies. It is designed to act as a bridge between them. It allows value to move from one currency to another instantly without the need for massive pre-funded accounts. This is why institutions view XRP differently from typical cryptocurrencies. They see it as a settlement asset, not a speculative token. On top of this, Ripple introduced RLUSD, a stablecoin built to work within regulatory frameworks. RLUSD handles compliance and legal settlement, while XRP provides liquidity and speed. Together, they form a system that addresses both regulatory requirements and technical efficiency. This is not accidental. It is carefully designed. What's important to understand is that these changes don't happen overnight. Financial systems move slowly because the stakes are enormous. But once the foundation is in place, adoption can accelerate very quickly. We are now approaching the phase where testing turns into real-world deployment. This is why it's dangerous to focus only on short-term price movements. The real story is about positioning. Institutions are preparing for a future where money moves instantly and efficiently. Projects that meet regulatory, technical, and liquidity standards will survive. Others will fade away. This content is for educational purposes only and not financial advice. The market is risky and everyone must do their own research. But if you want to understand where things are heading, you need to stop looking only at the charts and start looking at the structure of the financial system itself. That's where the real signals are. We can send a message across the world in seconds, stream high-quality video instantly, and run businesses from our phones. Yet moving money across borders still feels slow, expensive, and complicated. That gap is not an accident. It exists because the financial system was never rebuilt for the internet age. It was patched, adjusted, and extended, but never truly redesigned. Banks today operate on layers of trust and delayed settlement. They don't fully trust each other in real time, so they rely on reconciliation after the fact. This creates risk. To manage that risk, they use capital buffers, middlemen, and time delays. Every extra step adds cost, and that cost is passed down to businesses and everyday people through fees, poor exchange rates, and slow service. Now imagine a system where trust is built into the settlement itself. where value moves and settles at the same time. No waiting, no guessing, no need to park money in foreign accounts just in case it's needed. This is the direction global finance is moving toward, whether people realize it or not. Central banks, payment networks, and regulators are openly discussing faster and instant settlement as the future standard. But here's the catch. Faster settlement means less flexibility for banks. In the old system, delays allowed them to manage liquidity more easily. In the new system, liquidity has to be available immediately. This puts pressure on banks and payment providers. They need a neutral, efficient way to source liquidity on demand without holding trillions idle. This is why digital assets are now part of serious financial conversations. Not because they are trendy, but because they solve real problems. XRP in particular fits into this discussion because of its speed, low cost, and ability to act as a bridge between different currencies. It doesn't care if you're moving dollars to yen or euros to pounds. It focuses on moving value efficiently. Many people still ask why banks would use something like XRP instead of just upgrading their own systems. The answer is simple. Banks operate in different jurisdictions with different rules, currencies, and settlement times. There is no single bank that controls the entire system. A neutral bridge asset removes friction between these systems without requiring one country or institution to dominate the process. This is also why regulators are paying close attention. They are not interested in hype or speculation. They are interested in stability, transparency, and control. Ripple's strategy has been to align with these priorities rather than fight them. This approach may not excite traders in the short term, but it matters greatly in the long run. Another important point most people overlook is scale. A solution might work for small payments but fail when volumes increase. Global finance operates at massive scale. Systems must handle thousands of transactions per second without breaking. XRP Ledger was designed with this in mind, focusing on efficiency and reliability rather than complex features that slow things down. As adoption grows, the conversation shifts from "can this work" to "how do we integrate this safely?" This is where partnerships, pilots, and gradual rollouts come into play. Institutions don't flip switches overnight. They test, adjust, and slowly expand usage. This process can feel boring to retail investors, but it's how real money moves. At the same time, the market is filled with distractions. New tokens appear daily, promising quick profits and revolutionary ideas. Most of them won't survive. History shows that infrastructure plays are not flashy at first. They build quietly, then become essential. Think about the internet itself. The biggest winners were not always obvious in the early days. This is why understanding context matters more than chasing headlines. Price action tells you what traders are doing today. Infrastructure development tells you what institutions are planning for tomorrow. These two timelines rarely move together. It becomes obvious that finance is still lagging far behind. We can send messages instantly, stream videos in seconds, and run global businesses from our phones. Yet moving money across borders remains slow, costly, and complicated. This gap exists because the financial system was never fully rebuilt for the digital age. It was only patched and adjusted over time, not redesigned from the ground up. Banks today rely on layers of trust and delayed settlement. They don't fully trust each other in real time, so they reconcile transactions later. To manage this risk, they use buffers, intermediaries, and time delays. Every extra layer adds cost, and those costs are passed on to everyday people and businesses through fees, bad exchange rates, and long waiting times. Now imagine a system where trust is built directly into settlement, where value moves and settles at the same time, without delays or guesswork. This is the direction global finance is moving toward. Central banks, regulators, and payment networks are openly discussing instant settlement as the future standard. However, instant settlement creates a new challenge. In the old system, banks use delays to manage liquidity. In the new system, liquidity must be available immediately. That puts pressure on banks because holding large amounts of idle capital is expensive and inefficient. They need a smarter way to access liquidity on demand. This is why digital assets are now part of serious institutional discussions, not because of hype, but because they solve real problems. XRP fits into this picture due to its speed, low transaction cost, and ability to bridge different currencies. It doesn't matter whether value is moving from dollars to yen or euros to pounds. The focus is on efficiency. People often ask why banks would use XRP instead of upgrading their own systems. The answer is simple. Banks operate under different laws, currencies, and settlement rules. No single institution controls everything. A neutral bridge asset reduces friction without giving control to one country or bank. Regulators understand this, which is why they focus on stability and compliance rather than excitement. Ripple chose to work within these rules instead of fighting them. This strategy may not create short-term hype, but it builds long-term trust. Scale is another critical factor. A system might work for small transactions, but fail at global volumes. Financial infrastructure must handle massive transaction loads reliably. XRP Ledger was designed with efficiency and scalability in mind, keeping things simple and fast. As adoption grows, institutions move from asking, "Does this work?" to "How do we integrate this safely?" That's why pilots and gradual rollouts matter. This process feels slow to retail investors, but it's how serious money moves. Meanwhile, the market is full of distractions. New tokens appear daily, promising quick profits. Most won't survive. Infrastructure projects often grow quietly before becoming essential. The internet followed the same pattern. XRP isn't just a token in a wallet, it's being positioned as a core part of the plumbing for global finance. The $27 trillion trapped in pre-funded accounts around the world represents liquidity that could be unlocked, and Ripple has spent the last decade designing a system to do just that. This isn't about speculation or short-term gains. It's about solving a problem that has persisted for decades. Think about the challenges banks face when moving money internationally. Legacy systems built on technology from the 1970s rely on complex messaging between multiple banks. Each step adds cost, delay, and risk. Nostro and Vostro accounts, where banks park pre-funded money in other countries, tie up trillions that could otherwise circulate in the economy. Ripple's solution doesn't just speed up transfers, it frees that liquidity, turning dead money into usable capital. Now, this is where understanding Ripple's strategy is crucial. They are not trying to become a retail bank or compete with your local credit union. Their goal is to become a regulated financial counterparty, or RFC. This status allows them to directly participate in the global settlement process, giving them access to the financial plumbing that most people don't even realize exists. Becoming an RFC isn't about branding. It's about compliance, trust, and legal recognition. Without it, they cannot operate at the scale required to move trillions efficiently. The concept of netting explains why banks previously tolerated slow settlement. Banks often offset obligations. If Bank A owes Bank B $10 million and Bank B owes Bank A $9 million, they only settle the difference. This reduces the amount of money they need to hold, but introduces delays. Atomic settlement, which Ripple and XRP enable, removes this middle step. Transactions settle instantly, meaning banks need full liquidity up front. That's a problem traditional fiat systems can't solve efficiently, but digital assets like XRP can. Automated market makers, or AMMs, play a key role here. Most people know AMMs from DeFi platforms where they facilitate trades without intermediaries. For banks, AMMs could provide instant liquidity pools for settlements between central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, or different fiat currencies. XRP functions as the bridge, connecting pools for euros, yen, dollars, or other currencies. Instead of needing a separate pool for every currency pair, XRP acts as a universal translator for money. This is how a neutral digital asset can optimize global settlement. It's also important to understand the layered role of Ripple's RLUSD stablecoin. Some wonder why a stablecoin is necessary if XRP exists. The answer lies in regulatory and legal requirements. Banks need assets that are recognized legally for settlement purposes. This is where RLUSD comes in. It satisfies compliance and legal needs. XRP, on the other hand, provides the liquidity layer to move value instantly across borders. Both work together. RLUSD handles the legal settlement, XRP handles the liquidity. This dual-layer approach is critical because it allows Ripple to operate within the system while addressing real liquidity issues. The $27 trillion trapped in global banks isn't going to be freed by regulation or software alone. It requires a bridge that is neutral, efficient, and legally recognized. XRP fulfills that role, while RLUSD makes it palatable to regulators and banks. However, this is still an experimental phase. Ripple isn't claiming that the system is fully deployed yet. There are many moving parts: legacy banks, regulations, pilots, and competing technologies. But the direction is clear. Ripple has positioned itself to be part of the new financial infrastructure rather than a short-term speculative play. The shift won't happen overnight, and investors need to understand that infrastructure adoption often looks slow and boring, but its impact can be enormous once it reaches scale. Finally, it's worth noting that this isn't a closed system. Other networks, stablecoins, and digital assets will coexist. XRP doesn't need to be the only solution. It needs to be a critical, central piece of the plumbing. Its value comes not from hype or price speculation, but from its utility as a bridge asset in a regulated global settlement system. Understanding this distinction is essential for anyone looking to assess XRP's long-term role in finance. The market will continue to produce noise, lawsuits, FUD, price volatility, but the underlying story is about building infrastructure, unlocking liquidity, and creating efficiency. Those who focus on the headlines will miss the transformation happening behind the scenes. The The future of finance is being quietly rewritten, and XRP is positioned as one of the central tools enabling that change. It's clear that the financial system is entering a new era. The pilot phase for digital assets is ending, and the deployment phase is beginning. This means that only assets and companies that meet strict regulatory standards and demonstrate real utility will survive. Ripple has been preparing for this for years. While others were trying to avoid regulatory scrutiny, Ripple was fighting for legal clarity, building relationships, and proving that XRP could function as a compliant settlement asset. This is what some call the Great Filter phase. The filter is essentially a test of legitimacy and readiness. Only those companies and assets that have passed through this filter will play a meaningful role in the new system. Ripple is positioned well because it meets both legal and technological requirements. The efforts to become a regulated financial counterparty, RFC, are not about marketing or hype. They are strategic moves to participate directly in the settlement of trillions of dollars in liquidity. From an investment perspective, it's helpful to think in terms of system centrality. XRP is not just another coin, it is central to the Ripple ecosystem and increasingly integrated into the plumbing of global finance. It is designed to be hard to replace as a neutral bridge asset. Its role is critical because it enables instant settlement between different currencies while minimizing friction and cost. Compared to other assets, XRP's position is strong because it addresses both legal settlement and liquidity needs. The adoption of XRP doesn't eliminate the need for other technologies. Other assets like Chainlink, Ethereum, or Quant may still play roles in data feeds, tokenization, or interoperability. The goal isn't a single winner, but a coordinated ecosystem where each asset has a defined role. XRP's value comes from being a bridge and engine under the hood, facilitating the movement of trillions in a way traditional systems cannot. The $27 trillion liquidity problem isn't something that can be solved overnight. Legacy systems are cautious and change is incremental. Banks and regulators will adopt new technologies slowly to ensure safety, stability, and compliance. Meanwhile, media noise, lawsuits, FUD, and volatility can distract retail investors. But the institutions writing the rules, such as the IMF and BIS, are planning for a world where private settlement assets and atomic settlement are standard. They are naming XRP specifically, indicating that it is already recognized as part of the future infrastructure. Understanding this context is critical. XRP is not a speculative gamble. It is a tool being positioned for institutional adoption. Its short-term price movements are irrelevant compared to its long-term role in solving a systemic problem. The adoption process will be gradual, and investors must focus on the underlying infrastructure and regulatory progress rather than headline news. Finally, the choice is yours as an observer or participant. You can watch from the sidelines, or you can educate yourself and follow the developments in real time. The opportunity lies in understanding how global liquidity works, the role of neutral bridge assets like XRP, and the transformation of traditional banking into a digital, instant settlement system. Those who grasp this early and focus on fundamentals will be better prepared for the changes coming in global finance.